Hey everyone, my name is Dan Bromberg. I am the Director of Academic Programs for the Carsey School of Public Policy. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Chief Rob Buxton. Rob is a fire chief in Hudson, New Hampshire. And we're gonna get to a conversation with Rob in just a little bit. Before we get going with that conversation, I'm just gonna share some information about the Carsey School. Specifically, I'll talk about our new First Responders Educational Award, which we're thrilled to be able to, share with all of you. So let me just give you some background and a few pieces of information, lay of the land. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with Zoom at this point, but should you have any questions, feel free to drop them in either into the chat or to the Q&A box. I'm joined today by two colleagues at Carsey, and they're going to be happy to, help us respond and answer any questions that are out there. So welcome. Let me just get rolling here with this slideshow. So the Carsey School offers 4 academic programs, public service master's degrees. We offer a Master's of Public Administration, or our MPA degree. We offer a Master in Community Development, or our MCD degree. We offer a Master's of Public Policy, or MPP degree. And we also offer a dual degree with the law school in Concord. So it's an MPP JD dual degree. I'll primarily focus on the MPA, as I think that is what most of this audience is interested in, but I'll cover all of our degrees. Rob happens to be an MPA alum, so we'll spend some time talking about that as well in our conversation. The MPA program is now a fully online program. So what does that mean? That means that students do attend class and can complete that program fully online. However, they still have the opportunity to meet with their fellow colleagues and students, both in person and online. So our classes are offered asynchronously, but we meet with our students regularly. We have social opportunities. Classes often have class discussions online. So you still get exposed to that networking aspect of what a small program at the University of New Hampshire offers you through an MPA degree. There are 2 options for the MPA program. There's an executive option and there's a traditional MPA option. The executive option is for those of you with a bit more experience in the field. And if you have that experience, then you reduce your credit load by 6 credits. There are 4 basic core courses, there are 3 advanced courses, and then a set of elective courses that all of our students take. And there's also a capstone experience. We have what's called a Master's in Community Development. And I would say this program is unique, meaning that there aren't any other programs quite like this, I would say throughout the country. There are a few that are similar, but nothing quite like this. This is a 36 credit program. And if we think about an MPA program as really, sitting in that organization and managing organizations, an MPA, Master's of Community Development program really thinks about bottom-up development. So what does it look like at the community level? How do I build partnerships through different nonprofits and maybe some public agencies? A lot of our students are in the community development finance space in this program. So, getting funding into the community and helping to build those partnerships. The shining light of this program is our 4 course project sequence. So students essentially start their capstone project on day 1, and they go through a project through a 4 course series until they're implementing that project in their community, and then they have an opportunity to evaluate that project at the way end of their experience. So happy to talk more about that as well if there are some questions. Our Master's in Public Policy program is really our only fully in-person program. It's a 40 credit program, so a bit more than the other 2. There are 5 core courses associated with this, and there's a week-long Washington, D.C. Colloquium or trip to D.C., where our students meet with pretty high-level policymakers across the policy ecosystem. So not just folks that are, working in the federal government, but also, folks that are in governmental affairs, folks that are at think tanks, and really getting a full sense of what it looks like to make policy at the national level. Our students actually returned recently from that trip. And once again, it was a phenomenal experience. It typically is. Tuition and funding. So the way tuition works for us is these are, there's a per credit cost. So if you were to think about an MPA program that's either 30 or 36 credits, you basically could do the math there. Our 30 credit program ends up costing about $23,000, maybe a little bit less than that for our in-state students. And for those of you that are first responders, right off the top, you get that first responder $5,000 award towards your education. So you get to take that off of that 23, which, we really think makes it an affordable program for the quality that you're getting through the Carsey School. And this is something we're certainly aware of. Time and money is something we hear about a lot. How can I fit this into my life? And how could I afford that? So these are things that we are, very purposeful about. So this is that $5,000 first responders education award. We're looking at sworn police officers, firefighters, paramedics, emergency medical technicians. This is the award for you. And honestly, we launched this award because we believe that you are the students who we want in our classrooms. You are doing things in the community. You are part of this ecosystem of public administration, central to this ecosystem. Not only do we want to honor that and thank you for your service, but we want you in our programs, right? You offer such valuable insight to, your colleagues in the program. So, we're really proud and thrilled to be able to offer this $5,000 for any of you involved in first response, in any of these careers. Today, I'm joined by Chief Rob Buxton. So Rob graduated from the MPA in 2019. And, just so much insight that Rob was able to share in the classroom. And I'm really just looking forward to this conversation that Rob and I are going to have now, connecting that both, to the classroom and, Rob's experience as a fire chief and working in the fire service. So please feel free to check out the website. Here are some contact information for us. We'll drop that into the chat so you guys all have that. And with that, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to open up, stop sharing my screen, open up a conversation with Rob. And Rob, I'm hoping we could just start with, you just sharing some information about yourself, your background, where you're currently at, anything along those lines.
Yeah.
And welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you for the opportunity to come and, give back to the organization of the program. As Dan mentioned, I'm currently the fire chief in Hudson, and I'm not sure that really provides a good snapshot as to what I actually do for the community, but I am privileged to have been in the fire service for the last 30 years. I started out in the town of Hudson in 1991. So I'm just about to the end of my 30th year here. In 2013, I had the privilege of moving over to the fire chief's office and leading a great organization, and very happy with the growth that we've shown. Over that time period, I've really tried to connect and keep myself current. And this is a conversation that Dan and I had several times as I was really poking around at what master's program I wanted to go to, and what got the hook into me to go to the public administration program. I believe in continuing ed. I believe in continuing development and a combination of those, certainly in a very technical field, but at the same token, the critical thinking skills that come along with the secondary education was important to me, and remaining current in my field. So that's just kind of an opener to where I started, Dan, and certainly throw it back your direction. I'll let you lead this conversation forward.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. So thinking about coming back to school, it's a lot, right? I mean, coming back to school after a bunch of years out, making your way back. You said you landed on the MPA. I mean, could you walk us through that a little bit? What was that? Yeah. What was that like?
Sure. So in 2013, I had graduated from the National Fire Academy's Executive Fire Officer program. So it had been a couple of years since I had really formally sat down with formal education and wanted to really get back to that. And what I started researching out was really a true gut check on myself to make sure that I was selecting a program that was going to help me continue to develop, right? And those are things that we talked about. And UNH Manchester and the Masters of Public Administration program really provided that opportunity for me to leverage not only skills that I had today or skills that I had learned over time, but really catapulted me to learn government better and forced me to learn government better. Because I think there were some conversations somewhere along the line over the couple of years I was there to really have that conversation in regards to, hey, we could be doing a better job, and how do we do a better job? So coming back, I will admit, and you'll smile when I say this, there's a little rule in the MPA program says you got to take Dan's foundation class in one of your first 3 classes. And if you are not up on your reading speed, that certainly will tax you. And that makes you do a little gut check a little further and check your commitment level. And I appreciate that. But the program was wonderful and really, from foundations right on through, really hooked me into where we are today.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment, Rob.
It is a compliment. It is, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I mean, the nice part, and I think, Rob's kind of alluding to some of this is, we work with our students closely as they make their way through the program. And I had the good fortune of working with Rob a good amount, and not only that initial course, but then also working with Rob on his final capstone. So that experience, it's a really great experience. I'm wondering if you could dig in a little, like one layer deeper as far as, so how does this curriculum, on a daily basis, is this something that you connect to the work you're doing regularly?
Yeah, so probably coincidentally, I don't think the timing was supposed to work out this way in my world, but I had the privilege of being elected as the president of the New Hampshire Fire Chiefs Association at the same time period as I was going through this master's program. I really don't wish that upon anybody because that's a lot of work. But the reality is this, is when you ask what's the connection point, right? Probably one of the biggest connection points that I could give you goes right back to that administrative law class. And I thought about this a little bit, and how does that all function? We think we understand how government works and, how a bill becomes a law and all these things, but really having a true understanding to the process in Concord was very, very key to my overall success, because you take that experience to understanding how the Concord format works and then apply it locally. They talk about government in New Hampshire is local, and that is true. But I think it starts on a broader level and you narrow your skill set a little bit. So that was a tremendous opportunity as we're working on different pieces of legislation to make us successful, not only here locally, but at the state level. So that connection point with that law class. And probably the next thing I can tell you is that the leadership program portion of the MPA program, I gained a lot of energy, and, I think there's certainly, we see over the last 2 years going through COVID, you're now seeing a lot of leader turnover within the state, right? And one of the successes or things that I hold near and dear was the energy that I gained, whether it was once a week at some points of the program or twice a week during the program, to actually going somewhere and having the opportunity either online or in person to get that energy from the next generation, give back a little bit, share my experience, but gain that energy to keep going. And it was truly an energy that has continued to propel me forward, and that's important to highlight, I think.
Yeah, that's great, Rob. I mean, I think both of those, there's just interesting connections, right? First, no one really goes into administrative law thinking that they're going to enjoy this class. And it tends to be one of those classes that is really helpful and connects to so much of what our students are doing. Yeah, I mean, it was one of my favorite classes I remember as an MPA student, and being surprised, I think, by how relevant the content was, how it made my brain shift a little bit in its thinking. Yeah, so great. Yeah,
And
go
I
ahead.
think this, Dan, if I can for just a second, I think it goes and it highlights, and the administrative law class really highlighted for me the quality of instruction. Never in any of the programs that I sat in did I feel like the quality of instruction was in question, and to have somebody that worked in the gel car process, leading that administrative law area, and really showing us the technical side of it, how things worked, was so important for my development as I continue to advocate for fire service things today. From cancer awareness to PTSD type of legislation that we're working on currently, those are big things. And to have that understanding to the process and the specifics, like, hey, don't take a misstep here because that's going to cause you another 2 weeks worth of work. You know what I mean? So it was great.
Yeah, and for those of you not familiar, what Rob's referring to is the Joint Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules, and the faculty member that teaches that class was part of that process, and led that from a legal standpoint. And I think a lot of what happens in that process is the explanation to people without law degrees as to how this legal process is working, that translation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's great. And the other thing that Rob, that you mentioned was this idea of, gaining energy from your peers and your fellow students. There is this exchange that happens. And I want to highlight that this still happens in an online environment. Mainly, I mean, we're still meeting in person and having conversations like this. We also have discussions online where you have some students who don't have as much experience, but they really have, this sense of how they want the public service to work. And then you might have some students with a bit more experience, and you bring that together in a classroom, and it really does kind of infuse the class with energy, provides a bunch of different ideas. I really appreciate you highlighting that. Could you talk a little bit about the relation between the MPA program and just first responders in general? Because you don't typically, right? You do think of more of the technical skills maybe that you would associate. And not everyone's a fire chief, right? Not everyone's kind of leading an organization. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, and when I think about the state of New Hampshire, right, and I know we're speaking specific to the MPA program here at this time, but all of my education piece really started even back down at the community college level in New Hampshire, and there's this process called FESHE, which really builds upon itself, right? And you can follow that through New Hampshire now, from the community college to Granite State, now to UNH, the master's program, which is wonderful. I didn't always have those opportunities, but those behind me will have that opportunity. I think it's important to recognize that there is a certain portion of our profession that is technically based, and you talk about that. But as we develop leadership, because that's really one of my key jobs, is to create the leaders that will come in behind me, those points for those leaders are becoming more critical, right? So the expectation, and we were talking before this webinar about what's the last 2 years. Dan and I haven't really spoken in person for probably 18, 24 months, and what does that look like today? I can tell you there are points going through COVID that I have tapped everything that I learned through the master's program, from project management to leadership skills to law questions and how you develop things for your community. And I think the public is kind of looking for those skill sets today. The average taxpayers in their home, they pay their taxes yearly. They want to know it's being guarded and spent wisely, and we're critical of our public officials, right? And that, as they should be, and as I am of my public officials, right? So, but the skill that you learn and the connection point is like how to problem solve. You're not going to be an expert in every area. It's just not possible. But the networking and the skill set that you gain to be able to problem solve that is very key to the overall success of not only of you as an individual, but probably even greater is your organization in your community. And those are all skills that were developed through the MPA program.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. I'll kind of end with this, and then I'll turn it over to you if you have any, further thoughts. Rob tends to be a pretty great example of our student body at Carsey. And I, like I said, had the fortune of kind of watching that growth and that progress and the conclusion, right? And Rob kind of finishing that degree and bringing it through to its culmination. And watching our students both engage and grow in our program is a pretty wonderful thing. And I think you still get that with us. I think that's still kind of a real key part of our program and all three of our programs. So, not only are we able to kind of watch and engage with our students, we're also able to learn and grow with our students as well. I've never run a fire department, right? I mean, so the amount that I could gain from learning from Rob is to, okay, well, what does this look like on the ground? And that back and forth, I think, happens in the classroom regularly across all of our programs. So, Rob, it really is, a true pleasure to have you back. I appreciate your willingness to support us and talk with, our community and potential students. So thank you. And if there's anything else that you'd like to add, love to open it up.
Yeah, just to close out one last point, and you talked about this, right? You talk about the UNH network, and you talk about all those things, right? And those are important. I can't tell you the number of alumni that I've actually been able to reach out and touch with a question because they're either in law enforcement or another section of government, or you bump into somebody and, I remember graduating and Dan handed us all a little UNH lapel pin. And I wear that frequently because I'm proud of the work that we do and we did at UNH. The network, it is so entrenched in the state and in what we do government wise that it's important to recognize that piece. I'm into relationships and how you build those to be able to communicate. You may not know the answer, but you're going to know somebody that does know the answer, and the network will help you get there. So that's another key point. And I appreciate this opportunity. I'm ecstatic to see the first responder credit that you're going to give for the $5,000 and those types of things. And I hope it helps the program continue to grow. So if I can help in any way, please reach out.
Thank you, Rob. Really, really greatly appreciated. I'll turn over to Robin. And Robin, if there are any Q&As, and if anyone watching or listening would like to ask any questions, please feel free. We have a few minutes saved for Q&A.
Hi, Dan. We have one here. Thank you for your service, Chief Buxton, is their first comment. And a question for Dan is, if I want to start or manage a nonprofit organization, which degree will prepare me the best?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say, there's probably a longer conversation that needs to happen at some point, but the quick answer is either our Masters of Community Development or our Masters of Public Administration. It depends the type of nonprofit organization, how you see kind of building partnerships through that nonprofit organization. Is it much more at the community level? Might it be a larger nonprofit where you're, really looking for those specific organizational management skills, right? And those are the balances and questions, we ask when we're having that conversation. But right off the bat, either the MPA or the MCD are kind of the two programs you'd narrow it down to.
Great, thank you. Another question is, how many courses do students typically take per term? And then the follow-on is, are the Master in Community Development and Master in Public Administration programs practical for those working full-time?
So I would say they're both practical for working full-time. As far as how many courses students take at a time, I want Rob to chime in on this. I mean, a lot of our students say, look, if it's 8 weeks or 14 weeks, I could handle anything at that point. I think the balance is, probably 2 courses is the max. But Rob, I'd love for you to jump in and share your experience.
Yeah, that is a great question. And listen, the this is a team effort. You may be sitting in the chair, you may be doing the research, but this is a team effort that starts at home and starts at work, right? So you need to have a great supporting cast to be able to complete these programs. Two classes a semester is probably fairly reasonable. The one piece that I always enjoyed was the J term. So you could pick something else up to accelerate, you know, and that really helped me in my process because I moved pretty swiftly through the program. But the J term is a key point there that I would just recognize because it's kind of a spot where you can fill in, you know.
Yeah, awesome. And now, and Rob, I think we did have some 8-week courses when you were, you were in the program. Now all of our courses are 8-weekers. So essentially what students are doing is they're going, 8 week within the traditional semester. So in theory, you could pick up 4 courses within a traditional semester. And then so let's assume that runs from, end of August till the end of May. Then there's one more session, which is a summer session. It's May to July. And if you're in that executive program and you go 2 classes at once for every 8 weeks, for 5 to 8 weeks in a row, you finish the program. So it really does create, an opportunity to finish in a relatively quick manner without taking more than 2 classes at once. But no question, I think, what Rob said, and highlight that this is a balance. I mean, this is really a balance. And for every student, it looks slightly different. I think our faculty are well aware that our students are balancing all of this, and we try to work with you. But there's a lot of work. It's a graduate program. There's no way around, doing the work.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I see.
Great. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate you hopping on and helping us out. All right. Well, hey, thanks, Rob. I really appreciate your time. We appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you to everyone who's, jumped in on Facebook or jumped in on the webinar. We will post this, so we'll share this video for everyone. And take care.